You know, when engineers build a machine, the ultimate goal is zero friction.
Right.
You lubricate the gears, you tighten every single bolt, you eliminate any physical resistance, so the engine just hums along with absolute silent perfection. But what happens when you take that exact same obsessive engineering mindset and apply it to an entire human society?
Well, it creates a fascinating and honestly deeply disturbing paradox.
Yeah.
Usually the result is something that looks incredibly peaceful on the surface, but it requires a tremendous amount of invisible structural control underneath.
Exactly. Like, we tend to think of utopias and dystopias in stark black and white, right? Bombed out cities versus shining towers.
Right, the classic sci-fi tropes.
But a truly frictionless society often blurs that line entirely. It replaces outward oppression with absolute inescapable convenience.
And that brings us perfectly to today's deep dive.
Yes, it does. We have gotten our hands on a truly wild, leaked, futuristic document.
It really is something else.
It's a collection of official Bureau character dossiers dated from the year 2049, coming from a society known simply as the Consensus. But before we look at the specific individuals in these files, can you lay the groundwork for us? Like, what exactly are we looking at here?
Sure. So, in the lore of these documents, the Consensus is this massive supranational bloc. It was formed by former Western nations.
Like North America, Western Europe, places like that.
Exactly. North America, Australia, New Zealand. This unification happened after major geopolitical fracturing in the early 2030s called the global divergence.
Okay, so a few decades from now.
Right. And by the time we hit 2049, they are managing a severe demographic collapse. I mean, we're talking a birth rate of just 0.8 per woman.
Wow, that is incredibly low.
It is. And that's alongside a practically flatlining GDP growth of about 1.1% annually. But the defining characteristic of the Consensus is how they govern that decline.
Right, because they don't use force, do they?
No, they have entirely abandoned violence or traditional political oppression. Instead, they maintain total granular control through weaponized HR policy.
Weaponized HR policies, that just sounds chilling.
Oh, it gets weirder. They also use therapeutic wellness brands, most notably a massive state institution called FutureFem.
Right.
And this incredibly ubiquitous social credit system that monitors literally everything from your vocabulary to your resting heart rate.
Okay, but the geopolitical foil to all of this, the rival on the other side of the planet, is a bloc called the Sphere, right?
Yes. The Sphere represents an alliance of Asian, Middle Eastern, and African nations, and they are operating on a completely different paradigm.
Like polar opposites.
Exactly. They are unapologetically capitalist, aggressively expansionist, and chaotic. They boast an 8.4% annual GDP growth.
Which is massive compared to the Consensus.
Huge. And a booming birth rate of 3.2. Plus, they actively maintain a sprawling Mars settlement program.
Oh, wow. So they're literally reaching for the stars while the Consensus is, what, looking inward?
Pretty much. The Consensus looks outward and views the Sphere as messy, dangerous, and dangerously unoptimized.
And how does the Sphere see them?
The Sphere looks back and views the Consensus as a decadent, shrinking society quietly sedating itself to death.
Yikes.
And the really chilling part of these documents is that both assessments appear to be entirely accurate.
That is so interesting. Okay, so our mission today is to explore the absolute inner workings of this optimized society.
Right.
And we're going to do that by analyzing 7 highly detailed personnel profiles from the documents. These citizens are all tied to an initiative called the No More Mask Project.
Which is just a wild concept in itself.
It really is. It's a state-sponsored cultural engineering program designed to create the perfectly compliant, frictionless male pop star. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the literal architecture of the experiment, because we get a direct look at the control room and the very first baseline subject.
Yeah, so we begin with subject 001, a man named Greg.
Poor Greg.
Right. The Bureau lists his current status strictly as archived. Greg was the founding subject of the FutureFem Compliance Performance Program.
And looking at his biometric and behavioral data, you see exactly how they quantify a human being, don't you?
Absolutely. They tracked his masculinity quotient, which actually declined perfectly in line with the Bureau's parameters.
She still failed.
He did. Where Greg failed was his narrative alignment score. That measures how deeply a subject internalizes the state's ideology on a psychological level. And he flatlined at a 71.3. He needed an 85.0 to be approved for public broadcast. So he never recorded a single track, and he was abruptly removed from the program.
The language the Bureau uses to describe what happened to him is terrifyingly clinical. Like, they note that the system learned from his failure and that they are grateful for his data.
Yes, very corporate speak.
But they refuse to acknowledge if he's even alive. The dossier coldly states that his file is closed and his estate has been notified, quote, where applicable and an estate exists.
It's so dystopian.
It is. And they just stamp his profile with an official tagline, quote, compliance is the only path to total clarity.
And the person enforcing that clarity is the subject of our second profile, Zara.
Okay, tell us about Zara.
She is a control room operator whose official designation is aligned. Zara's entire existence revolves around sitting in a monitoring suite, observing the 41st subject to this pop star project.
Wow, subject 41.
Yeah. And there is a specific incident detailed in her file where an unauthorized narrative override occurs.
Which is essentially a major anomaly or breach in the experiment's psychological parameters, right?
Exactly. And Zara's biometric response time to this intrusion is 0.4 seconds.
That's incredibly fast.
It is. But she doesn't hit a panic button. She doesn't stop the experiment to check on the subject.
What does she do?
She simply logs the intrusion into the database, silently updates the system parameters to adapt, and lets the experiment keep running.
And she actually receives a Bureau commendation for operational continuity for doing that.
Yeah, she gets an award for it.
I look at Greg, and he reminds me of an early, glitchy beta version of software. The developers realize the code is completely unstable, so they just quietly delete it.
Right, scrub it from the server.
Exactly, pretend it never existed to avoid admitting they built a flawed product. But Zara operates like an incredibly efficient human firewall.
That's a great way to put it.
The dossier praises her for having an alignment index of 96.8, specifically because she possesses just enough baseline human empathy to accurately monitor the subject's emotional state, but completely lacks the empathy required to actively interfere and help him. So I have to ask, is she even human at this point, or has she just become a biological algorithm?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the Bureau fundamentally defines the ideal human state. They do not want robots running the control room. They don't. Why not? Because an artificial intelligence cannot validate a political ideology. The consensus wants human beings who still possess the biological capacity for messy, disruptive emotions, but who have been conditioned to voluntarily suppress their own humanity in favor of the system.
Oh, wow.
Zara is the ultimate triumph because she could feel horror or pity, but she consciously chooses to feel nothing but the parameters. Her file closes with the tagline parameters set. The experiment proceeds with total clarity.
Leaving that suffocating control room and stepping out into the everyday reality of the towns, the consensus reveals how this exact philosophy shapes the general public.
It really does. You see a full spectrum of compliance.
Right. On one end, someone achieving perfect harmony through absolute brain-dead apathy, and on the other, a cultural operative who has actively evolved to let the system do her thinking for her.
Exactly. The apathy is perfectly embodied by Profile 3, a woman named Jade.
Okay, Jade.
The Bureau designates her simply as verified. Jade is an independent civilian living in Smart Zone 3. The system tracks something called an Align Well Equistatus,
which seems to be a composite score of a citizen's docility, their ambient stress levels, and consumption habits. Right?
Spot on. And Jade holds an astronomically high score of 91.7. She gets dragged into the orbit of this pop star project purely by geographical accident.
How so?
Her penthouse apartment happens to be located within Aesthetic Documentation Zone 7 Alpha. So the state decides to use her daily life as a passive ambient documentary subject for a music video.
Naturally.
Right. They send her multiple legal and privacy notifications about this. Jade just swipes them away, dismissing them without reading a single word.
Wait, really?
Yeah. And her ecostatus score doesn't drop for ignoring official comms. Instead, the Bureau praises her as a fixed point.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Jade reminds me of a consumer today who downloads a new invasive app and immediately scrolls to the bottom to click accept all terms and conditions.
Oh, absolutely, without reading a single sentence.
Exactly. But for Jade, that isn't just how she uses a smartphone. That is her entire civic and moral lifestyle. Total blissful ignorance treated as the highest societal virtue. The Bureau literally stamps her file with stability as the foundation of a compliant society.
And then we contrast Jade's utter passivity with Profile 4, Priya. Priya is designated as optimized.
Optimized.
Okay.
Okay.
She is a graduate of the Sentinel Sense program. She works as a remix artist, and she hosts a state-sponsored show called Alignment Dating.
Sounds like quite the resume.
It is. Priya wears a Sentinel Sense wristband, which is a piece of wearable tech that actively monitors speech and biometric intent to predict and intercept microaggressions before they even occur.
That is wild.
Yeah. During the course of her involvement with the project, her wristband detected 847 potential conversational harms.
Okay.
Priya personally handled exactly 0 of them.
0.
The system's algorithms intercepted, neutralized, or auto-corrected every single interaction for her. She has effectively evolved past needing the device at all. She functions autonomously on autopilot while the wristband just pulses on her arm as a formality.
Hold on. I'm stuck on a massive contradiction in her file. The dossier celebrates Priya as the ultimate success story of this optimized society. But they also praised her for having a 0% match rate as the host of a dating show.
Yeah, that is a striking detail.
How does a 0% match rate make her a hero? Doesn't a society need a next generation to survive? How does a culture with a 0.8 birth rate sustain itself while celebrating the complete failure of human connection?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals the terrifying underlying logic of the consensus. Remember, they are managed by the Bureau of Reproductive Consensus,
Right.
which actively enforces an antinatalist policy. Their goal is not growth. Their goal is the perfect management of decline, perfection through subtraction.
Perfection through subtraction, wow.
In a hyper-curated, frictionless society, human relationships are the ultimate source of friction. Love, jealousy, family dynamics, they all cause narrative disruption and unpredictable behavior.
So they just want to eliminate it entirely.
Exactly. Therefore, voluntary non-pairing, the active choice to not match, not procreate, and not complicate your alignment with another biological human, is viewed as the absolute highest expression of civic duty.
That is so bleak.
Priya is a hero specifically because she facilitates perfectly smooth, completely fruitless interactions. Her tagline spells it out. The Sentinel Sense wristband ensures complete efficiency.
Efficiency over existence. To actually maintain a population of people like Jade and Priya who are just, floating in this state of optimized nothingness, the consensus relies on some incredibly powerful architects behind the scenes.
No, without a doubt.
These are the people who actively manage the illusion, literally rewriting the past and dictating the future to ensure the narrative never cracks.
And we see that mechanical rewriting perfectly in Profile 5, Dr. Yemi Osei.
Dr. Osei.
He is designated as aligned Elend, and he serves as a senior archivist at the Bureau of Narrative Equity, specifically running the Her Story Correction Suite. The sheer scale of his work is staggering. In just the first quarter of 2049, his department processed 4.7 million historical corrections.
Oh my God, 4.7 million.
Yes. He is dynamically altering the historical record in real time. The dossier casually notes a Tuesday, where Dr. Osei personally tore out the 2017 Traditional Masculinity Archive page to wipe the historical slate clean for the new pop star.
Just tore it out.
Just tore it out. And when questioned about the weight of destroying history, he just shrugs and notes what day of the week it was.
So Dr. Osei operates like a live updating cultural autocorrect. He isn't just a Wikipedia editor. He possesses terrifying retroactive power to alter human memory before people even realize the truth has changed.
Exactly.
But there is a very dark administrative note buried in his file. Colleagues who expressed professional concern about his aggressive methods weren't debated or fired.
No, they were dealt with much more quietly.
Right, they were quietly, quote, reassigned to the Sphere Liaison Office, which, given the geopolitical tension, sounds an awful lot like a political death sentence.
It certainly does.
The Bureau stamps his file 4.7 million corrections. The past is finally consistent.
And then we move up the bureaucratic food chain to Profile 6, Yara Sol. She holds the executive designation and serves as the executive director of the FutureFem Consensus Integration Division.
Okay, so she's high up.
Very. She oversees this entire suffocating ecosystem of products, media, and social conditioning.
Right, so Yara Sol watched the new manufactured pop star perform, approved his massive 7-year contract, and broadcasted the state's triumph to the entire society all on the exact same day.
A busy day.
Very busy. But during her broadcast, she confidently tells millions of citizens that it is a Tuesday. But the Bureau's meticulous internal logs note that it was actually a Thursday.
Which seems like such a minor thing.
It does, and in that same broadcast, she makes an incredibly arrogant statement about their rivals, the Sphere. She declares that the Sphere's rapid expansion and chaos are temporary, that they will eventually reach the exact same ideological conclusions as the consensus.
And that the consensus will be waiting for them.
Exactly. Her official tagline reads, Observe, analyze, align. The consensus endures. But the hypocrisy here is glaring.
How so?
You have Dr. Osei's department literally obliterating 4.7 million objective historical facts in a single quarter, erasing entire decades of human culture. Yet, the Bureau cares enough to document that an executive got the day of the week wrong.
Right, noting the Tuesday versus Thursday discrepancy.
While simultaneously celebrating her as a visionary leader. How does a society function with such a massive cognitive dissonance?
This raises an important question about the nature of totalitarian bureaucracies, especially ones driven by algorithmic compliance. That cognitive dissonance isn't a bug, it is the defining characteristic of the consensus.
Interesting.
They are clinically pathologically obsessed with the micro-bureaucracy of logging data. They log Zara's 0.4-second response time. They meticulously note Yara's calendar slip.
To what end, though?
Well, by hyper-fixating on these tiny, meaningless details of reality, they create an impenetrable illusion of perfect transparency and administrative rigor. And that provides cover as they macroscopically obliterate objective truth.
That makes a terrifying amount of sense.
But you are asking the exact right question. Can a society built entirely on semantic games, rewritten narratives, and microcorrections actually survive a reality check from an external force? The sphere is literally building rockets and expanding its industrial footprint, while the consensus is arguing over what day of the week it is.
That is the multi-trillion-dollar geopolitical question right there. But the consensus is entirely blind to the outside world. They're completely focused inward on the culmination of all this machinery. All the historical manipulation, the intense biometric monitoring, the social conditioning, it all funnels into their ultimate product. Subject as 041.
Which brings us to Profile 7, Mirko P. His status is currently under review. He is a FutureFem recording artist, and as his subject number implies, he is the 41st iteration of this project.
And he has no idea, does he?
He has absolutely no idea about the 40 failed human beings who came before him, including our baseline subject, Greg.
Wow.
Through a combination of environmental conditioning and technological intervention, Mirko P's masculinity quotient has been successfully reduced to a reading of negligible.
Negligible.
Yeah. He releases his debut single, ironically titled No More Mask, and it rockets to #1 on the consensus-approved streaming chart within 72 hours.
Completely destroying the previous record holder, which was the state's own Align Well corporate jingle.
Exactly.
The mechanics of his compliance are incredibly grim when you look closely at the file, though.
They really are.
He wears a state-mandated piece of smart jewelry called a Bahad Baby choker. This device literally pulses against his throat, stimulating his vagus nerve and issuing subaudible frequencies to condition his subconscious while he sleeps.
It's physical conditioning.
It is. It's a massive physical and psychological violation. But it's perfectly legal within the consensus because the consent clause was hidden in a digital user agreement that Mirko just blindly clicked accept on, exactly like Jade.
Without reading it.
Right. And he hasn't read his staggering 7-year recording contract either, but the most horrifying detail is his psychological evaluation.
Yeah, this part really got to me.
When Bureau agents ask him what the profound meaning behind his hit song is, he looks them dead in the eye and says, "It's just how I feel."
And the Bureau flags this as the most successful compliance statement in human history.
They close his file with, "The deal is signed, the performance begins." So what does this all mean? I look at Mirko P, and it's easy to compare him to the ultimate manufactured 1990s boy band member.
Sure.
But instead of a greedy record executive controlling his schedule, it's an entire supranational bureaucratic state stripping him of his fundamental biological autonomy. But how can the Bureau celebrate his response?
Because it proves the system works.
But Mirko genuinely believes, "It's just how I feel." How can you actually feel anything authentically when a state-mandated device is literally vibrating against your vocal cords night after night, chemically and neurologically programming your subconscious to produce state-approved emotions?
You've identified the true underlying tragedy of subject S041, and really the tragedy of the consensus as a whole.
Yeah.
The horror of this dossier isn't that Mirko P is being strapped to a chair, tortured, and forced to sing state propaganda at gunpoint. It's far more insidious.
Right.
The system has so successfully removed the friction of original independent thought that his complete oppression feels to him like total authentic freedom.
Right.
He doesn't need to be forced to comply because the very neurological capacity to desire anything other than what the state wants has been optimized away. He is a prisoner who believes he designed his own cell.
It is a beautifully sanitized nightmare.
It really is.
When we pull back and look at the trajectory of these 7 dossiers, from the cold observation of the control room to the pulsing choker of the pop star, the takeaways are profound. These sources reveal a society that has effectively weaponized the soft language of wellness, HR jargon, and the passive, mindless convenience of modern technology. They haven't violently crushed human descent. They've simply made it too socially and biologically inconvenient to exist.
Absolutely.
And as outside readers of these documents, we have to remind ourselves impartially that these are not the secret, hidden motives of a shadow government. These are the proudly stated, openly celebrated public goals of the consensus.
Exactly. They view the elimination of human unpredictability not as a necessary evil, but as their greatest technological and moral triumph.
Which brings me right back to the machine we talked about at the beginning. The beautifully lubricated, perfectly frictionless engine that hums without a single rattling bolt.
Right.
The consensus has achieved a quiet perfection by hyper-fixating on rewriting their own history, ensuring conversational compliance with the pulsing wristbands, and utterly dominating their own internal, closed-loop streaming charts. Meanwhile, outside their borders, the real world hasn't stopped. The sphere is out there with an 8.4% GDP growth, aggressively expanding, looking up at the stars, and actively settling the surface of Mars.
It's a striking contrast.
It really is. So I want to leave you with this final, lingering thought to mull over. What happens to a civilization that has perfectly, meticulously optimized away all of its internal friction when it finally collides with an expanding, chaotic universe that absolutely refuses to read its user agreement?